It doesn't matter. We can cut it from any point. We don't have a jingle. We don't have a plan. We don't know where we're starting, but no one's here for our great organizational skills. Hello.
Wait, but that sounds like most businesses that we're dealing with today. They have no plan. They don't have a jingle. They're just getting together, trying to figure it out, which is why everybody's burning out.
We sit up to room 6. We'll sit down, the 6 of us. So what are we doing here?
At least we're honest. At most other meetings, no one agrees.
Well, the whole point is that we've got a whole lot of couples, 3 different couples in 3 different time zones who are tech, married to tech, married to tech, married to tech, and we just keep swapping stories with each other. So why not to get together during the middle of Dwena's evening, during the middle of Dana's painting, and just have a chat. So
I think we should start by introducing ourselves.
Go ahead,
sure
Mr. Finster.
Fine, we'll do it.
So I'm Brian Finster. I'm a developer.
I'm Dana Finster. I am a systems and infrastructure engineer. Newly minted. I was a developer for 25 years.
Are we going this way or that way? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Dave Ballantyne. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, IT developer, come VP engineering, come DevOpsy sort of person. So, yeah, fairly wide, not so deep on a lot of things.
I'm Dwena Bromstrom, and I'm making this techie be more human and all the other ones that I can find.
You're trying to cast an evil spell over all of us and make us all more human. Is that what you're saying?
Specimen 0, but we're working on everyone else. I fight human death and do my best to see the world of technology be smarter.
You are wonderful. You guys know me. I'm Trace Bannon. I'm a software architect and engineer, and I went into technology because I don't like people, and all I do every day is deal with people. And I am Dev, married to ops.
Yeah,
so,
I'm Bob Bannon. I've been in operations for decades.
There you go.
Yeah,
and he doesn't like people either.
Because we don't like people, and we're all ending up just doing people-focused things.
That's very true. That's very true.
It's almost like an eternal punishment.
Yeah.
Tracy, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, I've been talking to you guys both lately about burnout, and we're seeing reports that talk about it. We're seeing it on our day jobs. We're seeing it on our side hustles. We're seeing it in communities where we used to just get together and talk. People are even burnt out about just getting together and talking. So what the heck's going on?
Well, that's a lot.
So burnout-wise, I have a chapter in the book because the book is looking at the paradigm of work. I've tried to figure out kind of where it starts and stuff. We have obviously 50, 60 years of office work, and in all that we've always had burnout. But to the level that we see today, it has obviously never existed. The reason it's exacerbated today, I think, is number one, the fact that we are coming in a post-pandemic period that's never been wrapped up for everyone. So everyone at every level is still burnt out. There's a theoretical term called, I think, post-pandemic syndrome of sorts, where everyone is still very tired, has difficulty kind of processing things, and that contributes to existing burnout. And in industries where we've had a lot of learning to do, which is technology like us, burnout is higher. That's all I want to say. I'll stop talking now and let you guys tell me who here has had burnout. I am not even out of this new one. I probably have 2 right now. Like, it's happening now.
But so I've been a developer for nearly 30 years, and there's been many times when I've been burned out. And honestly, I don't see a lot of difference between how often or why I get burned out now versus at the beginning of my career, right? Usually it's been either given a death march where we're really working really long hours, or the problem is just super boring.
Mhm.
So if I get bored, eventually I just get burned out with what I'm doing. It's like I just need something more interesting in what I'm doing. So from my personal experience, I haven't seen a lot of difference now versus at the beginning of my career.
That's an interesting take on that, because I might actually be a little reverse from that, mostly because of the shift to cloud computing. So previously, everybody had data centers on site, and most organizations that I've worked with have not been flush with cash, so they've had a production system that when you had to update it, you had to take it down, and your operations people did that off hours. So, we were working overnights into early mornings, but now it's, oh, well, we'll just spin up another instance. That'll be the production one. We'll update that one, move everything over, and we'll do that during the day. So from that perspective, that may be a little less stressful, because it doesn't really throw your time schedule off.
No, and that's true. And I'll say that most of my experience in delivering software has been we have to deliver off hours. And you have to take the system down and go and install and then make sure everything's good. And so there's not a lot of difference there. I guess I'm kind of numb to, hey, we have to do things after hours. That doesn't actually cause me burnout unless it's happening all the time.
There are two different themes that are going on here, though. There's one theme which is it's almost a global burnout versus an individual burnout. So I agree with Brian that throughout my career, there have been times where, whether I was asked to or whether I put the stress on myself, I was doing whatever it took. But I always felt as though there was a light at the end of the tunnel, that there was some place where it was going, after the peak, it was going to come back down. For me personally, and what I'm observing is that we're not getting a break anymore. So with the amount of technology and it is changing fast. I know every year we say it's changing faster, but hey guys, it's changing faster.
This one is it. Real.
Right, and the amount that we have to learn, I've always said, oh, it's incredible. I love to learn. It's getting overwhelming to try and learn. It's getting overwhelming to try. So there's a whole bunch of FOMO. And everybody around us has that same thing. So there's a constant fevered pitch. Everybody's at this fevered pitch. Brian, I don't see a break, is what I think is the thing that kind of frustrates me, is like, I have to go away and turn off my phone and hide for a week to get a break. I literally have to hide to get a break.
But that's all right. And I think that's something that I do talk about that in the book as well. I think that's a lot of the responsibility over how we should feel has been magically placed on the enterprise, and they'll take care of our happiness and satisfaction. And it never happened. Obviously, we know that's BS. And instead, they just kind of pretended we don't need it and created this human debt thing. But that I keep on and on about. But outside of that, we also kind of stopped thinking that we should do better for ourselves as well. So we've never imposed that we should have the respected times. We never insisted that we should be able to get some form of self-care. That's, oh, now we lost them for real. It's very obvious that but so it does feel like we never kind of, as individuals and as professionals, we didn't say, no, this is my limit. This is what I'm going to give you versus this contract. It's just never been a fair contract anymore.
Slight different perspective, though. I think earlier in my career, I used to be able to get into flow a lot easier.
So you have no internet connection.
Like, so you'd start working,
Has that been happening?
have a cup of coffee,
Nope.
catch your mates, stop developing at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then you'd suddenly look up and you'd be like, it's 1 o'clock. how the hell can it be 1 o'clock? It feels like I've been working 10 minutes. But I think now there's so many different context switches we have to do that you never seem to get into that. Plus, I think, the pressure of the systems we're working on, like the systems I was working on 20 years ago,
That
they
was
didn't need to
weird.
be 24/7. 20,000 TPS. But now they are. The consequences of making a little cock up are so much more than they used to be back then.
I've always worked on high availability systems, and that really didn't cause me burnout. But it's interesting. I think the reasons that us, this particular group, the reason we feel burnout is very different from how other people feel it. So, like earlier this year, I was getting really burned out because I was getting all of these requests from me to put talks together for different conferences, and finally, I just had to say no. I'm like, I'm tired. Putting a talk together is a lot of work, and I'd rather just do my day job and like not get burned out. So it's like coding is my refuge from burnout.
Oh, definitely. I'm on the same page as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter if it's coding or something else, does it? It's just the question is, can you keep in flow? And we know now, just by looking at positive psychology and all the stuff we've learned over the last 20 years, that if you can keep in flow, you're less likely to become burned out over time. Now, keeping in flow is a super complicated thing to do, as we all know, both at individual and at team level. But to me, it's always been really bizarre that we don't spend a lot more time trying to figure out what that is, right? Because I get in flow when I write, other people get in flow when they type, when they do code, right? So there's just what makes it happen. For instance, you can't do with the context switch. I need the context switch, right? Because I'm ADHD enough that I need multiple context switches. It's just we all work differently. We need to figure out what those bits are. That's all, right? I think to a degree.
So you get burnt out by thinking about something for a long, long time. I get burnt out by switching between these two. Think.
And I get burned out by. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think burnout just is more prevalent today than it ever was because you're never disconnected from anything. You're not disconnected from work, friends, family, you name it. You're never disconnected, and that's the problem that wasn't as prevalent 10 years ago even.
Welcome back, guys. You okay?
We'll see what happens. The connection keeps coming and going, which is unusual in this highly wired. We are wired. Like everything is wired. We live right by the drop station for the
BIOS.
For FiOS. So just strange.
Yeah. Okay.
There is something I want to talk about that's topical. I want to talk about the Dora State of DevOps report that came out recently. And they had two really surprising findings. One was that trunk-based development was correlated with higher levels of burnout, which was incredibly surprising to me, considering I've worked that way for a long time. And the other one was that continuous integration only had a minor impact to how did they phrase it? But it didn't have a big impact on better delivery, basically. And both of those I found incredibly surprising, considering some of the other findings they found, which you wouldn't have found those findings unless you're doing continuous integration. That they said, though, these are amazing, these are cool, but you only get that from CI. But the interesting thing was the trunk-based development leading to burnout. And this is the second year in a row where they've mentioned trunk-based development and causing problems. But the thing that they haven't done is release the underlying data,
right?
How people are answering it. They haven't released the questions.
Oh,
right.
Well, we could get after the questions if we remembered when we take the when we all take the
No,
questionnaire, if we are smart enough to remember the questions.
we had an email, all of us, like a while ago, not long ago, and it was just a questionnaire. So perception completely, and whatever they sent us, I'll dig that
This
out.
doesn't have an Ethernet in it.
Yeah, I don't. Well, but
What do you want to do?
it's an email to link to
We're
the
not-
thing,
I
and I
think we're
don't
not
have the
gonna-
link to the questions.
Then go upstairs.
But
I don't know what else to do.
the thing that I've
This is not
seen,
working.
Yeah.
because
Unless
I
I-
have a
unless
lot
I
of
grabbed an Ethernet
conversations
cable
about
quick.
continuous integration, trunk-based development, is that people don't know what either one of those are, and there's been previous Dora surveys where I've had questions about how the assumptions people had when they answered it, because the challenge I have for Dora is that they have underlying assumptions when they write the questions
Well,
based off of their context that other people may not even share that context, and they may be unaware that that's true.
but if that's true, then they should be doing human-centered design so that they're removing those biases. I mean, that's fundamentally the questions themselves should not be leading people. They should be explanations, right, with those, to your point, Brian, to keep folks from any implied biases or any implied definitions that aren't there. Because I think you're right. I think that a lot of people are not on the same page about what PBD is.
That's the problem with surveys. We have an annual survey at work to, it's a bunch of questions. And before the survey, every year, we have like pre-meetings to make sure people understand what the type of questions that are asked and what frame of reference they should use answering certain types of questions. They don't know exactly what the questions are going to be, but your area. What's your area? I might think of my area as the overall area that I'm in, or my team's area, or my team, smaller area that's more just my team. Things like that. And I think that Dora, it's the same thing, except it's worse because it's all different contexts from all different companies and all different.
Well,
For someone who tried to make a survey for 15 years, it's super hard to land on the exact wording you need, obviously, depending on what you're trying to affect. But with that said, let's take it all the way back to something that we were saying even earlier, Tracy, you were saying, which is, I think it all comes back to the role of common language. If we all could simply just agree to 5 words we all use all the time, I don't even want more than those. And then we could, it's all I've been saying since God Almighty. Just let's all agree on these 10 terms, and then we can disagree on other bits and pieces. Now.
My favorite example of this is if you ask 3 people what an integration test is, you get 4 or 5 answers. But
From 3 people.
But just this past week, I've had multiple conversations about trunk-based development in particular, where people didn't really understand what trunk-based development is. And every time I start a conversation, I'm like, look, before you start criticizing or making strong statements, go read the source material on it.
Right.
And then let's have a conversation instead of you basing it on what you think it is, because it's probably not what you think.
Are we saying we need the Amazon memo again?
Would you have an Amazon memo on everything, I think. But I think it's fine. We should have Amazon memo on what it kind of everything we want to discuss. If we're going to team right here, 6, 8 of us about something, let's first discuss what exactly it is in an Amazon memo, and then we can carry on. Because
it wouldn't be very good viewing if we were spending 20 minutes reading the
I don't care. I don't care what's entertaining. It's just we're so desperate for dopamine. It's part. I think it is part of our problem. People grab at things that are quick to alter their state. They don't go to things that are deep. They take a lot of pain and so on. The more burnout you are, the less you're likely to engage in deep, intelligent information gathering. Let's put it differently. So,
what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to add to the trunk-based development causing burnout findings specifically. It may go back, to exactly what what we were saying earlier, the different people have different reasons for burnout. So
different
someone
thresholds
who
for
wants
burnout.
to keep their long-running branch and have their developer branch and just
Or just
stay in that code focus are going to
was
say,
live this
no,
whole
I
time
don't,
until you.
it causes me burnout because I've got to be present with the team and I've got to show my work, which can be nerve-wracking. I
Collaborate.
collaborate with people, but I'm an introvert. That's why I'm a developer, right? Like,
It
it's
takes
kind
more
of a
time.
self-fulfilling prophecy, even though if you get over that hump, it's, to me, the first time I heard that, I was like, well, that's just wrong, because if you're doing chunk-based development, you should be definitely integrating a lot more frequently, which means you're dealing with smaller bits of things, which makes things easier, not more prone to burnout when you're staying focused on the same thing longer and longer. But that's my perception.
It would be really interesting to find out how many teams who answer that trunk-based development causes them burnout also have any level of operational responsibility. Because if your job is just to code and then deliver the code to somebody else to figure out whether it works or not, right? And for somebody else to fix it when it breaks, then things like continuous integration seem like a real grind. But if your job is to deliver solutions,
Right. It's ownership.
Tested
that are tested, that work, and you have
you have to support.
It's
a
ownership.
support.
Yes. And that implies both what you make and how much you want it to last and how well you made it from the beginning. All of that. Do you have ownership and visibility to the product line? If you don't, and you're just this clog in the middle, then your burnout reasons can be very varied, but they're not to do with necessarily either the organization and the person. So I think, like what Tracy was saying, yes, there's an individual one. I think this is an interesting one. I would be interested to see how many teams that are complaining of burnout have suddenly went to trunk-based development, in the sense
That's
that
where
they
I want to go.
did things for long enough, they didn't quite get what it was, and then finally in the last year someone put their foot down and went like, right, I don't want to hear it anymore, you two sit down there, you two send me what you're done together, whatever.
And they don't know how to test, they don't know how to break things down, they don't know how to work
with each other, how to collaborate,
But see, that's a
anything. So it's a lot, yeah.
but that's a whole lot different than what we were saying before. So, is the burnout caused by trunk-based development? Maybe or maybe not. Is it caused by the forced adoption of something that they're not upskilled to do, that they don't have the proper leadership, right? They don't have the proper air cover, bottoms up and top down. They don't have the proper surroundings that they need to do this. Trunk-based development is actually hard the very first time you get after it. If you've been in an organization that hasn't been doing it and you're transitioning, I'm not going to say transformation, you're transitioning to it and you're trying to adopt it, unless you have some new people coming in who are energetic and already know these things, it can be really difficult. Brian, you know this from Walmart. Just trying to get everybody who's always been there to change takes a whole lot of effort and energy. I don't think it's one thing. I think you've got a whole bunch of people who don't understand. You've got definitions that are not well understood. And we haven't seen the data. There have been some complaints about Dora's, hold on. There's been some complaints about Dora metrics in the past, or Dora's reports in the past. Not that they're not insightful, but not understanding what the definitions are. Like, what's a high performing team? What's an exceptionally high performing team? Like, there are lots of definitions that we really don't get after because it's too anecdotal in the summaries.
And we need it. And if we go after the Dora report, which is the only decent piece of kit out there to change any industry in the world, right? And we go like, you don't quite know, what you're left with is 5 bad quality reports from the big force, and nothing to show why you should be looking at the human bit, nothing to show why. It's like, if Dora report didn't exist, the term psychological safety and Google would have never made it into the business world. Like, ask all these people that have been talking about it for 40 years.
But fundamentally, the problem that we have with things when we talk about trunk-based development, continuous integration, continuous delivery, is these are all solutions to problems that people haven't asked themselves if they actually know what the problem is, right? And everyone starts with, we need to do this thing because this is what high performing organizations do. Well, those high performing organizations had a problem that was being solved. Now, I know that anyone who's doing in-house development should be doing continuous delivery, but then I also understand the problem that's trying to be solved. And if you say, hey, we should be doing trunk-based development, why? Right? Why are you doing TBD? Well, the reason for that is because that's the most direct way for continuous integration. Why do we care about continuous integration? I mean, ask these questions. Do you really understand the problems we solve? And if you don't think that CI is something useful to you, then you probably don't understand what your real problems are. But you can't get any traction on doing it correctly until you understand the problem.
Oh, you and I agree on this violently. Go ahead, Dana. I'm sorry.
I disagree on one minor thing, which is I don't always think it's about a problem. I think because we expect them to think it's a problem, that they get another view, if that makes sense. So an answer to a problem is one thing. Put your head together to build a why for going forward is an even more courageous thing, if you wish, right? So if these people, you guys know I have this obsession with the fact that everyone has a certain amount of human debt, which is loosely defined as all the crap that we've been pouring onto our people. So that's why we can't go any faster and they're not any happier and more high performing than they should be. But I think that when we say, well, you're not solving your human debt problem, we have several issues. One, no one has one. No one has a human debt problem. Secondly, you're going to get immediate pushback of, well, it's too big. It's the humongous problem of. Or third, what are the ways in which other people have solved this thing? What are my... And then you kind of remove, all of these conversations are better than not at all or being in denial, but you're also removing the part where you don't need to ask these questions. You need to go back to the very beginning of everything and do a genuine why. And I'm saying this more and more often. It's like, do a why a year. Have you done a why this year? Like, why are you still using this? Why is your process still involving that? Why are we still meeting on Wednesdays?
But I think that's where Brian's going. I think this is one of those times where we as a group of 6 actually agree, but our language might not be, we might not be using the same terms. From the times that Brian and I get together and spar about this stuff, we're not just getting together because we feel like, we have jobs to do, and our jobs are to solve problems, deliver value. And all of these things that we're talking about are ways to enable us as a people group, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a government, whether it's a non-for-profit, it's ways for us to get after either delivering value or solving a problem. And usually those are the same thing. To your point, Dana, we always worry about the process. I'm sorry, Dana. We always worry about the process. We always worry about the tech. We've started to talk about culture. We just have to solve the culture problem. It's not a culture problem. Just if we back up to Duina, if we start asking, well, why are we doing X, Y, and Z? Does that help us to solve the problem? Does it help us to deliver value? Does it make it faster? Does it make it safer? Does it make it soon? Whatever those things are, what's the big why, right? The Simon Sinek among us, what's the big why? Start with asking why.
Yeah, and I think that's really, when I hear you guys say it, and when I say, you need to know the problem, I think the root of that is find the why, right? Don't just do it, have the why, right? So I think it's the same thing. And to your exact point from earlier, it's language. We call it a problem in the trenches, and and another level, it's just like, start with why, right? And
but look at us now.
Ask the same question, we're just asking it differently.
But we're not, but the difference is, look at us now. We're teaming, and we know, one, we have the experience of being a team that's done this before. I mean, we have had these conversations years together. We know where we each stand, right? So it feels comfortable. No one's like afraid to really go for anything. But secondly, what Brian and I were saying earlier, we were not disagreeing whatsoever. I was doubling down on his points. Like, that's But it's hard to tell from the outside. You're right, and it's because it's a number of things. One, I am now these days hard to translate, and my team is trying to keep me on the straight side, because I'm not saying things as corporate as I used to say them, and that creates this almost daily tension in our team of, how do we say this, should we say that, should we say this? So it makes us question everything all the time. But equally for that, what we have done, and I'm bragging because we're like a startup, we get to do it, but what we've done is we've stripped almost all processes, and we thought, what can we automate here? What does this new AI mini revolution give us to move slightly faster, to rethink our process pipes? And then also, what does this mean for every of our things, right? Why don't we make another thing that's X and another thing that's Y? And so it opened up a whole way of thinking that's new. And I think anyone could do an exercise like that for their specific jobs.
But
So
But
you
again, it's
just
very
made me
hard.
realize.
The
Go ahead,
organisation,
Dave.
which has got many, many committees and rubber stamps, and I'm sure we've all been there. We know exactly the things we're talking about, which almost feels like those blockers to getting things out. It almost feels like there's someone in every organisation whose job it is to say no.
the business prevention department.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
We don't want to push it all out. But now we're just asking the why about those departments, and it's just like, oh, but now we're going to be losing all of those people. Hang on, because we're asking the why, are we now going to be stripping out 25% of our staff? What are we doing with them all? But then you come to the McDonald's example of caution, contents may be hot. Right? There's always going to be, if this committee catches one thing, has it done its job?
yeah.
I think there's one of the things tracking back to the common language is that it's not enough to have a definition. There needs to be understanding. There's a difference between a definition and understanding. Brian and I encounter this with some of the US government areas all the time, that a word is defined. This is what cloud means. This is what infrastructure as code means. This is what we think agile means. And this is what safe means, SAF, lowercase e. And the problem becomes, without being understood as tools, as mechanisms, as potentials, people glom onto those things. I liken this to running into somebody who's walking down the street and you haven't seen them in a while. The last time you saw them, they were 100 pounds heavier. They were walking with a cane and they just were not doing well. But you come across them and they're walking with no cane. There's a spring in their step. They're lean. There's good color in their face. You say, what did you do? Well, I went to my doctor and he recommended keto. So I've gone ketogenic and I eat this way. That's great. I'm happy for you. Joe, you look wonderful. I'm glad things are going well. Now you make your beeline home and you're like, I'm going to do exactly what Joe did. Well, Joe didn't just do ketogenic things. He did. You don't know exactly. That word keto means different things to different people. You don't know about the medical tests that were taken. You don't know about what his underlying factors were. You don't know about what the exercise programs are. You don't know about the people coming into his house and being private cooks you don't know all of the things that surround that one little statement. Oh, I just do keto.
So what you do for implementation is you go eat like 5,000 calories a day, but it's keto. So why am I not losing weight?
Well, that's right. Hot dogs. Woohoo!
You didn't let her get to it, but what he also doesn't know is that, kind of forget the private chefs, but all that bloody determination and all the days when you really don't want to do it, and all the days when you know that just number 14 is going to make a difference. I got to get through this one more.
But getting through that, trying to adopt something that, if you're not taking a step back and understanding your own body type, if you're not understanding your own chemistry, if you're not understanding the differences in your biology versus somebody else's biology, organizations have biologies, right? That's the culture, those are the processes, the domains that they're in. There's a biology to an organization. If you don't understand the biology of an organization, you can't just sprinkle some medicine or sprinkle some magic dust or sprinkle some process and think it's going to work. Burnout, I think, where you're making my brain go is some of the burnout is probably caused Because you're making me go for a 10-mile hike every morning before I've had breakfast, and I didn't sleep well enough last night and I'm dehydrated. Like, you're not looking at my problem. You're not looking at my biology.
Be that. Yours could be that, and yours could be too many hours, and yours could be too much learning. Who cares? The point is, I think, the bigger point is, I think this is important. We're coming to a point in technology where I think there's a good opportunity for, in particular, younger generations, whatever we think of their ethics for work or interest in making clean software development sometimes, to present themselves differently to the workplace and to say, this is what I expect you to give me back. This is who I am. I'm an individual that's taking care of myself a lot more than other people, and I expect you to come correct and give me, I don't know, work from home and enough beer, and don't ever stress me out because I can never get on camera. I don't know what it is, but if they are clear on what they need and they keep very firm to it, in 10, 15 years, the world of work is going to be completely different, where you start being, I think, organized towards individual work versus common work. And that common work is involved. No one burns out when you go there for that, right? But so it's a future in which very quickly our relationship to the knowledge work and their relationship to the knowledge work might be very different. And look at Grinder. I'm sure everyone listening to this is familiar with what happened. People simply just went like, this is not going to work for us. In particular, people who, in a way, there was some element of them being, it was not a great group to dislodge and then drop in the middle of nowhere. It was not a nice thing to do. So a lot of things have happened that I think are meaning that people are going to go, this is my limit. This is my limit as a professional. This is my limit as a human. That's all I can give you.
You know, in one of the top consultancies in the world has a new chief executive office position. It's the chief purpose officer, and I find this just amazing because they're sincere in how they're starting this. Now, I'm not in the organization, so I'm not inside, but I have enough folks, enough feel into that organization that what I'm hearing is that there's another piece of it. So the individual understanding how you are a part of the bigger whole. So what is your purpose, but also what is the organization's purpose towards you? So there's a bidirectionality in understanding purpose. So they've actually created a global office, which is the chief purpose officer. Like, I kind of want to see where that goes.
I mean, I'm all for having humans that drive some different things as a project. I'm all for not having job titles that then mean that things like innovation or purpose or things that should be pervasive through our everyday become just the job of that one dude, and we don't need to worry about.
Hopefully they're a champion. I'm hopeful that they are a champion to the organization, not the only person that's responsible for it. They're not rolling out heavy mandates and mandatory programs, but that they are out there trying to
Great stuff, and you need
propagate it. Propagate that difference in mentality.
And absolutely, and they should also work on. I've always said that there's only 5 things you need to do, and they're all the 5 top things that bloody Google told us 15 years ago. It's no secret anywhere, right? So when you look at what they said, psychological safety, dependability, clarity and structure, and then purpose and impact. So not only purpose, but also let me see it back that I did something. That's where the magic happens, when you see that close, I think. What?
So what do you think, Dana? What do you think about the idea of a chief purpose officer? I heard you chuckle. I thought I heard you chuckle.
No, I mean, I think, to your point, if they're leading something and that becomes meaningful and it's not a top-down effort, my knee-jerk reaction was, great, now we're going to have a bunch of purpose frameworks that people can go get everyone on board with purpose frameworks.
Brian, I think we can weave this into SAT-MF. I am positive that we can weave this into SAT-MF.
I'm sure we could weave this into SAT-MF. But my knee-jerk reaction is that we have a CEO who doesn't know what their job is.
Yeah. Right. If the mission is there, the purpose is there. And if you're not projecting it enough to the organization for them to understand. You hire another C-level person to drive the mission.
Yeah,
Shouldn't it be that?
yeah.
Yeah.
What's the CEO there for? Because that's what the CEO is there for, is to define the purpose. Why are we? What are we doing?
Well, but that's a corporate purpose. And what I saw this, what I'm hearing and understanding of this is it's a bidirectional championing. Yes, the CEO sets the direction, right? They are the captain, my captain. They're setting the direction that that you're sailing, and he's not that CEO, male or female, that human is not able to connect with all of the individuals. So while they are setting the mission and the vision, hold on. While they're able to set that mission and vision,
No. I'm gonna stop you right there because I entirely disagree. If you're a CEO and you're saying we're going to do a thing, and then you can't sell that to the people who need to do it, you should be fired.
so
Right?
I'm
You hire another position to do the job that you were actually hired for. Because
I would disagree with you. I disagree with you when you have 200,000 people. I cry bullshit to you, Brian, because that if you have hundreds of thousands of people in your organization, the single CEO can only sell so much. They will sell the vision. They will sell it only so far down, but they're not talking to every developer. Hear me out. Let me finish. They need help.
Wait, hang on. Dana, how big is the organization you work for? How many people work in your organization?
Total?
Yeah, total.
2.2 million.
2.2 million.
So, and does your CEO set the vision for the software that you are delivering, Dana?
Wait, hang on. Do you have a chief purpose officer?
No.
Does everybody understand the mission?
Yes.
I mean, when I worked there, I understood the mission.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. So all I'm sharing with you is that I have been exposed to something that I find curious, and I'm not, Brian, I'm surprised with you because you're dismissing it without understanding, without any evidence, whether it is going to be helpful or not. So a little bit different than you, I'm going to give it a little bit of time and see if it can make a difference, because they did enough studies to understand that enough people were not feeling connected, especially after the lockdowns, global lockdowns, that they didn't understand their fit anymore.
You guys, I have a bit of a middle position on this, believe it or not. I think, which is weird for me, but I actually think that a person like this is absolutely necessary. We need an army of people that are doing purpose fluff jobs, because we need 100,000 people doing the fluff jobs. It's the truth, right? I don't care if what saddens me is that one chief officer of X just means like we've sorted this. We've done something about the heart of these humans. They got that purpose person, so we're good. So it can be that, it cannot be that. I don't know, obviously, right?
See, I don't know either. I just want to caution us that I'm not trying to judge this. I totally don't know, other than I think it's an interesting idea that somebody felt was a need for.
No idea. I don't even know the company, but I have seen this before. Chief happiness officers, chief purpose officers, chief innovation and purpose officers, for whatever reason, those have been lumped, purpose and impact, you name it. So I've seen it before, and it can go either way, because many times, and I'll give you two very specific examples how it goes right or wrong. It can go right if a CEO brings someone in as what I call like a balls enabler. Then if that person is there to just kind of go like, yes, no, you can say this about engagement, it will not make you look girly. Just be real that we're losing money with you. So if that's what they're there for, then this person will be super useful, because they are just a coach on get comfortable doing these big human dead things, right? So they'll be fine. But if they are ever brought in to kind of deal with that issue of the organization, that's a surefire way to sync that human and the idea with it. So the bigger problem, or the wonderful thing, is hiring anyone in a fluffy position is a signal that they know they have some human debt. The one wonderful thing is they have so much human debt, they have to have this one dude deal with it, or girl.
So, and I don't, bear in mind, just having one person doesn't mean that they don't have an entire organization. I don't know if there has been an organization. I don't know what the propagation out is into, right? Normally, you don't just put a CEO with nobody under them. If you do, then that's not a CEO. That's like the Queen of England, right? You've got a monarch and nothing else.
You want a
So,
sort of cheerleading down the organisation on a lot of different things, right? Mission.
Yeah, but see, the thing is that you it's pointless to have a role that all their job is to say, "Hey, good job," and this is the direction we're going, where they have no power.
I don't
Right?
think this is a cheerleading role, though. I don't think it's cheerleading. I think it's helping people to understand their fit in the evolving nature of what's happening with the organization.
So, what this tells me, though,
So
I get all sorts of red flags popping about that role existing, because what this tells me is that nobody below a C-suite has any idea what the hell the purpose of the organization is, and the CEO can't effectively communicate it.
So
I wouldn't want to work there.
I want to go back to Tracy's question about, does the CTO tell tech what the mission is? And that's not the case. The CEO. The CTO drives tech's mission, but it's also extremely tied into the CEO's voice and the overall company mission.
Right, but it's part of having that. You have this C. You have that set of C's, right? You've got the chief X, chief Y, chief Z. That group of executive leaders, each is dividing up the pie in different ways to help build. Should be doing that. So whether it's a CEO, CTO, CIO, CXO, CQO, don't care what it is. If they are identifying, to Duena's point, hold on, to Duena's point, if they've identified a problem or they've identified a big need, is it a bad thing for them to have created a role and carved it out?
It's not done.
I want to speak.
He's very triggered.
CISO because I'm in information security, and this has been a thing, right? What's your fit? What's your EQ? Our CISO did a presentation on EQ and helped the organization see like his story of just like how he ranked, on performance reviews, how he grew his career, how he figured out that, yeah, we're in tech, yeah, we're geeky or whatever, but you have to have that emotional intelligence. And above and beyond just the fact that he gave everybody this presentation, they've started doing training of everybody under the CISO for, psychological safety, for just general psychology, and then you have them filtering down to their reports who are filtering down to the organization. Now that didn't take a purpose officer to help us find our place. There was training filtering down so that all that, and that may be what the purpose officer does for the whole company, is come up with it. We don't know what the person does.
Maybe just a program that we don't.
This training should come from and how to filter them down.
Well, but what this sounds like is that the CEO needs a life coach, so just hire a life coach.
Can I be even more controversial?
Because I said needs the life coach.
I would say I think you all got it wrong. This is not a C anything. It's not about the C's. It doesn't matter which C. It's about the C's. 100%. A product owner is someone who should do that every beginning of every sprint, because if no one does it, let me tell you, me as a product owner, I don't have a good sprint if I don't go again. This is why we're doing it. Let's remember that the deal is, you want to come with me to this next meeting? Are we all on board? Is it happening? How about your mom? If you don't do those things as a product owner or a team leader or a scrum master, I don't care what the crap your name is, then you won't have a team that does this. So it needs reinforcing at a very local level. And then you need to be an adult and remember your own. I got to do this because my child's got to go through college. And because, you know what I mean? The purpose, the idea of having a purpose, if that dude all it does is allow you to have a purpose and you can have a purpose and you can have, then we should have him.
Well, yeah, so I served my purpose to get a conversation started by bringing up that I heard about this idea of a chief purpose officer. Boom, drop the mic.
But turn that right around. If you have a purpose, you're less likely to have burnout, to be burned.
Yes.
Well, do you think that's true, that if you have a purpose, you'll have less burnout? Because couldn't you have a
It's
purpose?
100%, ma'am. You should have read it in my book. 100%. You can see the correlation. Yes, the more, the more invested you are emotionally in your work, the less likely you are to suffer from burnout. At least from the data we limited to have.
So as a people leader, okay, if people understand what their purpose is, one of your main jobs is to make sure that they don't overwork themselves accomplishing that purpose.
Yeah.
Because they will absolutely dive in if they understand their purpose. Like I said, one of the ways I get burned out is I get bored, and I get bored because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't understand why what I'm doing adds any value. It's the same old drudgery. Just come in, do my work, go home, and I get bored, right? And I get burned out, and I don't want to do it anymore. But if I have a mission,
Ownership, yeah.
No.
if I have a mission to accomplish, then it's if somebody doesn't tell me you need to take a break, I will burn myself out just from focusing on the mission too hard.
We don't sleep much these days. We just started a new company, so
Yeah.
yeah, very true.
Yeah.
I think this is a really good way for us to kind of agree that if you're passionate and burn for something, you're probably not going to burn out, although you could out of sheer exhaustion. So that's something to keep in mind, that your physical self doesn't always keep up with your hyper interested neurodivergent self. And that's another whole other conversation. Maybe we should talk about it next time. Kind of, are we neurodivergent more than not if we're married to tech? As generalizations go. But so far, if you guys like listening to us, come back next week.
Yeah.
And
I
thank
think
you
it sounds
so
like
much.
a plan. Let's get together again.
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I will say the complexity of getting 6 people together is much harder than the complexity of getting, like me and Tracy.
2 people together.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Multiple time zones, multiple internets that don't work. Perhaps people
Bits and
will forget
spurts. Bits and spurts. Well, I appreciate Dana getting cleaned up, for Brian for running interference, for Dave setting up the meeting, and for Edwina for showing up and saying, "Yes, honey, we're going to do this at 11 o'clock at night."
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, I didn't have much of a choice in it. Let's say that.
Oh. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time then. It's been lovely chatting properly.
Cheers.
All right.
Good night, guys.
So long. Good night.
Talk to you later.